anchor approach, we had the coalition approach, and the third approach was affiliate model. And where we partnered with several smaller groups, such as the Filipino American Service Group Incorporated, Asian Pacific American of Northern Oregon, and APIAVote of Massachusetts. They didn't have the resources and capacity, but they were ready and willing to learn and grow with us over time. So we were giving them education materials and giving them enough information so they can do a viable, at least voter education program. In early 2008, we assembled our partners for a boot camp. We needed a boot camp mentality at a time because it was time for our community to really strengthen its field program, strengthen and introduce a communications plan, and introduce metrics. In the C3 sector, we have to let you know that it's hard for us to get the funding from foundations unless we have the evaluations down and come up with the numbers like the ministry organizations. So we have to prove ourselves in the numbers. They understand some of our stories in immigrant communities, but they also like to know the numbers. So narrative is one, numbers is second. So that was what we were trying to achieve in Nevada. A field plan, a communications plan, and an evaluation plan. Never been done in history that we were trying to attempt this on a national level. And so, for the first time also, historically, not just the boot camp, we were able to access voter files for each of our partners. And voter files are files on AAPI voter behavior on each of us, for those who are registered to vote. And imagine, back then, we were trying to just phone bank those in the phone book. This time it's strategically targeted to each voter in our community. That is how mainstream C3 organizations do it. That is how many political campaigns target the messaging for you. So therefore, for the first time, we're able to access voter files. That's very key in developing strategic plans for voter contact. Now I'm going to talk about our outcomes after all this. And we're very proud to say with all our partners that we have registered 18,000 new AAPI voters. Our AAPI vote partners sent out at least 100,000 educational materials through mail. We have knocked on doors close to 11,000 AAPI households. We have phoned back 85,000 and had live conversations with them in language. And we also roll close to 70,000 AAPI host households. So these numbers are viable. We can account for each number I just said. Because we want to make sure that before we set out that we are accountable only. We can't just say, oh, we door knock to Filipino households. We want to make sure that we know who we door knock to for this conversation. So we can track voter behavior per voter in our communities. It's traditional that we did it this way in language, and it's grassroots. It's important that we are grounded in local community organizations and in coalitions, because these are the groups that are accountable to the members and to the people that they serve. These numbers I just mentioned are benchmarks. And to some, maybe 18,000 registered voters is very low, but to us, it's a big deal. Because we're tracking our community's effort for long-term engagement, not just seasonal. This is long-term. As Norm said earlier, we have come a long way, but yet we have a long way to go. I just gave you a brief snapshot of what we were able to accomplish together from a national level to local level. Now I would like to introduce Amado Uno, and he is, again, the executive director of APIAVote. APIAVote is a co-founding member of APIAVote. Gloria Community, the former executive director, was there in the conception of APIAVote. We have worked together many hours by assessing, understanding, and trying to figure out how to connect national and local interests and concerns so we can develop a smarter way of strategic planning as we engage the community. A model what we call the bring it down now. This is where the grass-top strategies and grassroots work towards a coordinated effort, and I'm proud to have he's one of our rising stars.
Thank you, Vita. Good morning, and holiday. Congressman, unfortunately, that's the end of my night also. The conversation's going to have to stop there. Some lessons. Fourth generation Japanese American, third generation Romanian, and second generation labor. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge all of the organizers for the Pearl Gala. APIAVote is our sponsor. as one of the sponsor organizations, and also the National Coalition of Asian Pacific Americans, another Florida board is in share of NCAPA. So as Vita stated, there is a very rich and deep history between APALA and APIAVote. We're very proud to be one of the founding member organizations of APIAVote. We believe what's good for APIAVote is really good for the broader Asian American and Pacific American community. And so in 2006 and also in 2008, we were really able to bring together a bunch of local partnerships in a number of states where Asian American votes really matter. They're growing. We try to target states where there's a growing Asian American population. We try to target states where we knew that there were going to be close elections, and thus there was going to be much more attention paid to some of the smaller communities where we may not necessarily, from the national level, pay as much attention to areas where we have stronger partnerships and deeper relationships, places like California, Hawaii, and New York. So I was asked to address three major things. One is to briefly go over APALA's mission and vision. Secondly, to provide a brief description of the Every Vote Counts political program, which is APALA's political program. And finally, to go over some of the accomplishments and the lessons learned in 2008 in particular. So real briefly, APALA was founded in 1992 to advocate on behalf of Asian American and Pacific Islander workers. We're a chapter and membership-based organization that hopes to serve as the bridge between organized labor and the broader Asian American community. So who are our members? Our members are people like Maria Soma, who's the national president, and is a woman of steel. She's out of the steel workers. She's actually the first Vietnamese American woman, and also one of the first Vietnamese American woman to be president of APALA. Our members are Gloria Kawili, a longtime member of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, former assistant to President McAtee, the second largest union in the country. Our members are Helen Shin, members of the American Federation of Teachers, AFT. Our members are Joan Javier, former organizer with SCIU, and also a community member with the Center for Progressive Leadership. We tried to bring Joan back in after her stint with SCIU. Actually, we were successful in bringing Joan back in after her stint with organized labor to run our Virginia program. So these are our members. These are the ones that really shape the vision, the direction, the hope for APALA's Every Vote Counts political program. One of the underlying premises of our work collectively is that mainstream political parties, candidates, and some labor unions will not actively target Asian American voters for a number of reasons, whether it be a lack of political will, maybe it's because Asian Americans have some of the lowest voter registration and participation rates and they're not deemed a necessary investment, or maybe it's a lack of cultural competency. And so as long as Asian American voters have specific concerns as they relate to access to health care, to a fair and humane immigration reform system, for workers' rights, our hope is that all of our work will continue to be relevant. And so the Every Vote Counts political program was founded on the premise of building power through organizing and political action. I just got about 1 minute left, so I'm going to try to wrap this up very quickly. In addition to advocating for workers' rights, immigrant rights, and comprehensive immigration reform, one of the hopes of our political program is really to expand the electorate, right? So I think one of the assumptions is that political candidates, parties, labor unions are going to mobilize and turn out the voters that are going to vote anyways, right? These are what are frequently described as frequent voters.